Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking something pretty wild. We're going to look at how a genuinely terrifying underwater discovery, made right here on Earth, is completely flipping our hunt for alien life upside down. We're talking about abyssal brine pools. And as crazy as it sounds, these totally toxic environments are actually serving as the blueprint for finding extraterrestrial life. So let's just dive right into the ultimate mystery by asking what's arguably the biggest question in science today. Where are we most likely to find alien life? For the longest time, we've looked up at the dusty surface of Mars or stared out at these distant exoplanets. But as our understanding of biology keeps shifting, it turns out the answer might actually be hidden beneath miles of solid ice, inside vast, completely dark oceans. And looking at this timeline really puts the immense scale of our story into perspective. We are drawing a direct line from the super hostile conditions of Earth's primordial oceans 4 billion years ago, straight through to a shocking deep-sea discovery back in 2020, and then projecting all the way forward to our future deep in space in 2030. Let's actually jump over to the right side of that timeline first. We're going to begin with NASA's highly anticipated Europa Clipper mission. When this spacecraft arrives at Jupiter's icy moon in 2030, it's going to be hunting for something very specific: the raw ingredients for alien life. The Clipper is going to investigate Europa's thick, icy crust, and, more importantly, the vast, salty, subterranean ocean hiding right beneath it. Scientists actually believe this hidden ocean might be our solar system's absolute best candidate for extraterrestrial life. It's this environment completely cut off from the sun. But the really fascinating thing is, we don't even have to wait until 2030 to picture what that alien world might look like. Because to understand that alien ocean, we just have to shrink our cosmic scale way down to a completely baffling mystery found right here on our home planet. In 2020, researchers were scouring the pitch-black depths of the Red Sea when they stumbled across something they immediately dubbed a dark mirror. Picture this. You are a full mile below the surface, deep in the abyssal plain. The research ship Ocean Explorer's headlights catch something that simply shouldn't exist down there. The crew noted a murky shape 20 meters wide that looked exactly like a giant dark mirror just laying flat on the seabed. It was, incredibly, a distinct lake sitting at the very bottom of the ocean, complete with its own shoreline and gentle waves. Now, what's totally wild about this is the sharp physical contrast. On one hand, you've got a brine pool so dense and so super salty that a submersible would literally bounce right off of it. If you could somehow survive the pressure, touching it would feel like pressing on a giant bouncy waterbed. But then contrast that physical bounce with the environmental reality. You are 1 mile deep, surrounded by crushing pressure and perpetual, utter darkness. And don't let those gentle rolling waves fool you. Even though it has a distinct shoreline that makes it look like a peaceful little lake, this bizarre underwater environment is incredibly hostile. It is absolutely not a sanctuary. It's an eerie graveyard that is completely unforgiving to any normal sea creatures. Actually, the harsh, lethal nature of this brine pool is so intense that researchers gave it the most metal nickname ever: the toxic hot tub of death. And yeah, okay, that sounds a bit dramatic for marine biology, but as we'll see, it's an entirely scientifically accurate description of the extreme chemistry lurking in that water. Here's why. The environment is completely anoxic, meaning absolutely zero oxygen. None. Instead, it is heavily loaded with toxic methane just spewing directly out of the earth. The very second an unlucky fish or eel wanders into this brine, it's instantly struck by toxic shock and convulsing violently. The shoreline is literally littered with the mummified corpses of fish, crabs, and eels, perfectly preserved for decades in the super salty water. It is, without a doubt, one of the most extreme, inhospitable places on Earth. And yet, there is life here. After exploring that lethal graveyard, researchers uncovered a massive biological plot twist that absolutely blew their minds. Surrounding this toxic hot tub is an oasis. They found vast colonies of bright green tube worms and these massive 100-year-old mussels just happily living their lives right on the edge of the deadly pool. It's exactly the kind of impossible survival story that makes astrobiologists working on the Europa mission sit up and take notes. Which brings us to the absolute core mystery of this explainer. How is this even possible? How on earth can these complex creatures survive a mile deep in a highly toxic environment with absolutely zero solar energy? For the longest time, science just assumed that sunlight was the absolute, non-negotiable prerequisite for any complex ecosystem. Take away the sun, and life should simply cease to exist. Well, the answer totally shattered our previous understanding of biology. The magic word here is chemosynthesis. This is a biological process where organisms synthesize energy using chemical reactions from toxic elements rather than relying on the sun. It proved once and for all that sunlight is not the only fuel for existence. Life, it turns out, always finds a way, even in the absolute dark. So, let's break down exactly how this incredible process works. Step 1. Toxic methane naturally spews from the Earth's crust into the brine pool. Step 2. Specialized bacteria living inside the gills of those 100-year-old mussels actually intercept and process that toxic gas. And Step 3. That chemical reaction creates vital energy, turning into the lifeblood that powers the entire deep-sea ecosystem. They are literally turning a lethal poison into food, all without seeing a single ray of sunlight. And this seemingly impossible biological workaround right here on Earth is exactly why NASA is paying such close attention. Remember the Europa Clipper mission we talked about at the start? The scientists behind that search for extraterrestrial life are looking directly at the biological mechanics of these abyssal brine pools. They're using them as a literal blueprint for understanding how life might survive in Europa's pitch-black oceans.
So why does this matter so much for space exploration? Well, these dark, toxic lakes are totally revolutionizing our concept of the cradle of life. First off, they prove beyond a doubt that life can flourish in pitch-black, chemically rich, super salty environments. Second, they serve as the absolute best analog we have for Earth's own primordial oceans from 4 billion years ago. And most importantly, they prove that the icy, sunless depths of moons like Enceladus and Europa aren't necessarily lifeless deserts. I mean, if complex life can thrive around a toxic brine pool a mile under the Red Sea, there is a very real possibility it can happen out there in our solar system.
Which leaves us with one massive, lingering question to ponder. Will NASA find something similar waiting for us beneath the thick ice of Europa? As we wait for the Clipper spacecraft to arrive in 2030 and finally scan that subterranean ocean, these bizarre underwater environments on Earth show us that life is way more resilient than we ever imagined. What other secrets are lurking in the cold dark, just waiting to be found? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning what you know.